In today's video, Anti-Bot Defenses Reviewed and Graded, you'll find out exactly how and why some of these services are better than others. And then you'll understand why major websites, such as LinkedIn, have upgraded their security to use stronger anti-bot services such as Enterprise reCAPTCHA, seen here. Wow, those websites are protected by Enterprise reCAPTCHA. The automation is going to have a really hard time bypassing that. So for the stealthy bot, we'll be using the SeleniumBase test automation framework, which you can find on GitHub, and it has a special mode called CDP Mode, which basically masks the bot so that it appears human and will bypass those anti-bot systems that try to detect it. So here's an example of bypassing Cloudflare's challenge page, and this is one of the many tests that we'll be running today to determine the effectiveness of SeleniumBase against various anti-bot systems. You can see here that it was able to bypass Cloudflare detection on the gitlab.com page. So all these tests that are going to be run today will be run both locally and in GitHub Actions. This is how the grading system was determined. So here is an example of these tests running in GitHub Actions from a special repo you can find at github.com/mdmints/undetected-testing/actions, and you can see that there are many continuous integration builds that are being run in order to test the various websites that have the anti-bot defense systems. You may have also noticed an ABC grading system, and each grade has a very specific meaning. So for instance, if you get an A, that means that the anti-bot service can consistently stop my bot, which is the SeleniumBase bot. If you get a B, my bot can usually bypass the anti-bot service. And if you get a C, my bot can consistently bypass the anti-bot service. And to be more clear on those definitions, when I mean consistently, I mean greater than 99% of the time anywhere. And when I say usually, such as when you get a B, I mean 99% of the time locally and not consistently in GitHub Actions. So here you have the grades. So in the A category, we have HCAPTCHA, FunCAPTCHA, and Enterprise Google reCAPTCHA, which basically these three here are very powerful, and I wasn't able to bypass those bot detection systems. In the B category, we have human/perimeter X, and we have F5 plus shape, Akamai, and Datadome. So my automation was able to bypass those defenses locally, but sometimes there were issues when running it in GitHub Actions. And in the C category, we have Cloudflare Turnstile, Friendly CAPTCHA, Casada, and Imperva Encapsula, and my automation was basically able to bypass those in every single environment, both locally and running in GitHub Actions. So let's visit GitHub Actions so we can take a look at all the data that we've gathered from these tests. Here is the mdmin/undetected testing repo, which is where these specific GitHub Actions scripts have been running. If you click on the Actions tab, you'll see that it's been running a lot. Let's take a look at some of these. So let's jump over to here where we have a build, CI build 1, and we're going to basically web scrape a few different things. So for instance, on the Upwork website, they're using some Cloudflare defense systems, and I was able to bypass that in order to web scrape the various job postings that they had there. So you can see here, these are all reached and web scraped by SeleniumBase, showing that we're able to bypass the bot detection there. Let's move on over to a different job where we're able to web scrape data from the Nike website for shoe prices, as you can see here. And more of the Upwork web scraping as seen here. Let's move on over to the next one where we're going to be web scraping Walmart prices from a certain search that we did. So we did a Walmart search for Settlers of Catan board game, and here are the different results with the prices that were found. Let's jump over here, and I believe we had a CI build where we gathered some data. So let's take a look at that. In this particular one, we're web scraping ChatGPT, and we made a query, compare Playwright to SeleniumBase in under 178 words, and then we were able to get the results. And this is all running right from GitHub Actions. It's bypassing any bot detection systems that they have there, and we're able to get the data that easily. And here's another one where it ran again. You'll see that the result is slightly different because it's basically every time you run something against ChatGPT, it's going to generate a new response, even if you have the exact same question that you had before. So let's take a look at a different round of tests where we're going to be web scraping Southwest Airlines. You can see here we've got the various times that the flights were in, because I wanted to know flights from Boston to Chicago's MDW airport. You can see here the date, the time, the length of the flight, and the cost. So here $229, like here it's $279, here's $244. So it's basically able to web scrape all that data. And we have just like several different tests that we're running here just to prove that we can web scrape data and bypass those anti-bot defense systems. Let's take a look over here. Here we're web scraping prices from a search for Hyatt hotels in Anaheim, California. So you can see here for the date, Thursday, July 31st through Friday, August 1st, one room, one guest. You can see all the various results that were here, such as Hyatt House at Anaheim Resort Convention Center, $205. Let's see, we've got the Hyatt Centric Delfina Santa Monica for $263. Hyatt Regency Newport Beach West, $313. So you can see here just all this data was scraped by SeleniumBase. And here in another example, we're web scraping the Albertsons website, which is basically a supermarket. You can see here we're getting various search results for avocado smoked salmon. And then here we have smoked salmon bowl with ginger, rice, edamame, mango, and avocado, etc. Here we have miso smoked salmon, egg, bell pepper, and avocado wrap. So essentially, we were able to web scrape all the data there. And these are just lots of different examples that I'm running in order to demonstrate what can bypass the bot detection when running something from GitHub Actions. And some of these tests you can also run locally. So for instance, let's run the Python raw bestwestern.py so that we can get some hotel prices through there. And this time we're going to run it locally instead of in GitHub Actions. So it's going to go in, it's going to type a destination such as Palm Springs, California. It'll use the default check-in dates. It's going to then get to the results page, and then it's going to web scrape all that data, and then it's going to print it out over here. So you can see here, it printed it out. You've got Best Western Hotels in Palm Springs, California, USA. You've got the various dates that you wanted, such as July 31st, check-in, one night, and then the hotel name with the hotel prices. So you can see here, that's just web scraping in action. And based on all this data I collected from the various tests that I ran, we were able to establish a grading system to determine what gets what. Let's run a few more examples just so you can see things in action. So let's go into the SeleniumBase folder, examples, CDP mode. And we have a lot of examples here. So let's run another example where we're going to bypass Cloudflare on the GitLab webpage. So let's run that. We're going to go to gitlab.com, and you can see here that it was just bypassed right away. And then we're going to highlight some elements. It's going to show SeleniumBase wasn't detected, etc. So that's pretty easy. Let's run it one more time, but this time we're going to give it a bad user agent so it forces the CAPTCHA to be clicked. So let's do Python raw gitlab.py --agent equals cool. So I'm deliberately going to give it a bad user agent so that the CAPTCHA isn't bypassed automatically, and then PyAutoGUI controls the mouse and then clicks the CAPTCHA, and then it's bypassed just like that. So that's just an example where SeleniumBase is able to bypass that bot detection. Let's run another example. Let's do Python raw united.py, where we can web scrape prices from United Airlines. So we're going to go in, we're going to add in our from destination, which is New York, New York, or actually Newark, and then go to Orlando, MCO. Oh, it's typing all that in, going very quickly, trying things. All right, so it found some prices, and it looks like it's web scraping that. So if you look to the side here, you can see all the various flights that it found, a bunch of nonstop flights, the type of plane that you're running on, your airport, etc. And then you've got prices like Eco Basic and Economy. So all that was easily web scraped, showing that SeleniumBase was able to bypass the bot detection there. Let's run another example. Python raw southwest.py. It's a different airline, but we're going to do a similar thing to scrape those web prices. So let's go and depart from, let's see, Boston. And then we're going to go to Chicago. And then it's going to search through all that. Let's see, it's going through, finding what's available. And we see here, not too many flights were available, but I think it's due to using the date, August 2nd, 2 stops, 1 stop, etc. So I found a few flights there. Let's see what else we can do. Let's do Python raw footlocker.py. That one has some anti-bot defense systems on it. So we're going to go in, we're going to search for, let's see, Nike shoes. And then it's going to grab all the results, and then it's going to start printing that out. So if we go over here to the console output, you can see all these various Nike shoes with the prices and descriptions. So that is here, Nike Air Max 90. You got customer average rating, 5 out of 5 stars, 1,223 reviews, and the price $135. As just one example, there's just tons of different shoes there. So it's showing that the web scraping was working successfully. Let's run a few more. Let's do Python raw chat GPT, so you can see that example working directly here. Let's do compare playwright to SeleniumBase in under 178 words, and it's going to display all that data from the query. And then once it completes that, it's going to output that to the console. You can see that here. So this is the output. It was able to web scrape ChatGPT easily, and I also ran the same exact example in GitHub Actions where it worked as well. So let's take a look here. We've got other examples that we may want to run. So let's do Python raw planetminecraft.com. It's going to go in, and success. Cloudflare was bypassed successfully, so yeah, that's an easy one. That was one of the ones that got a C rating because I was able to bypass it easily, both locally and also within GitHub Actions. So let's see what else we got here. Let's do Python raw cohls.py, Kohls.py. There we go. Going in. Lots of various items. So let's do a search for Mickey Mouse 100 Friends Teal Pillow. And you'll see that the results are coming up here. And then we're going to just go through, see all the different results that came up as it's web scraping that. You can see here, it outputted that to the console right here. All right, let's run another web scraping example. Let's do Priceline's good. Python raw priceline.py, because they've got some good anti-bot defense systems. So we're going to search for hotels again. This is a different website that we haven't yet tried. Let's go to Portland, Oregon, USA. We're going to select our dates. It's going to search for that. And let's see, found a bunch of hotels like Candlewood Suites, Holiday Inn, etc., the Radisson, a bunch that it's showing. and you've got those prices right here. Priceline Hotels in Portland, Oregon, USA, with the check-in dates listed here, etc. So yeah, that is going through that. Let's see what else we can web scrape. Let's do Python raw indeed.py. There's an example of a site where there's a Cloudflare turnstile CAPTCHA. We're going to bypass it, and then we're going to search for a jet propulsion laboratory, and then we're going to hit a CAPTCHA. Powder GUI is going to automatically bypass the CAPTCHA, and we're going to see here NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. We've got info about the company, the CEO, description, etc. So all that is here. NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So that was easily web scraped. So as you can see here, there's just tons of different examples showing that we can bypass these anti-bot defense systems. And a lot of these examples were running in GitHub Actions. It looks like there's a job running right now, right here. So if we click on that, I believe that's the one that queries ChatGPT. Oh, it just started, so it's going to take a bit to actually get to that part because it's got to go through and install all the Python dependencies, get SeleniumBase going, etc. And then finally, it's going to query ChatGPT. So you can see here, it's just getting all the setup done. And finally, once that happens, it will run the Python scripts such as Python raw chatgpt.py, and it's going to run in debug mode so that if there's anything interesting there in the debug logs, it will display that to the console here. So we're going through, we've got the input for ChatGPT, and let's see if we query that successfully, because right now it's running. Oh, there we go. We've got the answer right here. So you can see here, input for ChatGPT and response from ChatGPT showing that it works. So I've just got all these different examples running here in GitHub Actions so I can accurately assess which anti-bot defense systems are good and which ones aren't. So if we go back to the presentation slide, let's go over here and let's just make that big. Let's talk about the final results of these grades. So you can see here, so HCAPTCHA, FunCAPTCHA, and Enterprise Google reCAPTCHA basically earned the A grade because I wasn't able to web scrape those at all. Whereas in the B column, you have these here, and the C column, you have those there. So now you know if you're a website and you want to prevent bots from scraping you well, the ones that I struggled with the most are the ones that got the A grade because they're very good at keeping the bots out. Whereas if you're using a B or even a C type of anti-bot defense system, then maybe the system isn't that great because I was able to bypass it. The grades do change year over year because sometimes things get better, sometimes things get worse, but actually the grades have gotten a lot worse than 2 years ago because of all the changes that happened in Chrome. So for instance, I did a query where essentially, let's see, in a continued effort to enhance user privacy, many modern browsers have implemented features that restrict or block certain tracking methods like detailed user agent data and installed plugins. So based on all these changes that happened over the last few years to Chrome, less data was being picked up by the websites, so they're having a harder time determining whether or not you're a bot or a human. And that's why a lot of these grades fell into the BC category that might have been a lot better a few years ago. I think Akamai has a good description on the timeline for that on their website in their blog. You can see that this might have been the original user agent for something, and then it became this. So you can see that the specific hardware details like that were removed, and also the specific Chrome version has been shortened. So instead of the exact minor versions there, it just says something like this, like 100.0.0.0, hiding some of that data. And they even have a timeline for when Chrome made these changes that impacted websites so that they weren't able to get as much data from you as they could before, making it harder for these websites to determine if you're a bot or a human. So that's pretty much that, and you can read that on your own time because, yeah, there's just lots of different information about that there. So, yeah, that is the presentation, and these are the grades that everyone gets. Next time, we're going to probably deep dive into more detailed anti-bot bypass, but essentially, if you're looking for just a quick overview, these grades should give you a nice summary of that. Well, that concludes this presentation. I'll see you all next time. Happy automating.